Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with Malhar Patel, student assistant, goal-oriented player. Appreciate him helping you out with podcast number 98. We're at the FM Tennis Performance Center, Boynton Beach, Florida. Our topic today, situational tennis training. I'm going to read these off, some notes. Malhar, you can help me out. Technical training, situational training, match play. For years, I told people you have a lesson court, a practice court, and a match play court. Another name for situational training, Dennis Vandermeer, simulated match play, simulated drills for match play. Just think of the word situation, create the situation. All right, so I'll go with number one, Gloria Connors. Starting a set, and any scoring format can be changed, starting a set with one serve, 15-30. That's a key point. 15-30 off a second serve. Can you level to 30 all? Or are you going to put yourself in a hole where it's 15-30? A side note, when pros practice, it's very interesting. Most often, they don't keep score outwardly. They know the score. They know the score. They know they're not doing well if they lose their serve. I can remember when Gloria Connors passed away and reading about Gloria, one thing that she did, I know some of the parent coaches out there, is very difficult to do if you're spending hours and hours at the tennis courts and your children circumstantially have to be there with you. But she used to always pull Jimmy off the court, when he'd be really, really excited, and she'd say, hey, we got to go. With that being said, I think of Ivan Lendl. This gets away from situational training, where when he would come back, he'd say, have 3 1-hour practices, or 3, you're changing surfaces. Have more sessions, more short sessions. But back to the situational training. I was talking to Andy Fitzel the other day. He was just recently at a grass court tournament with Henry Squire. Henry got a wild card. Unfortunately got injured, but he was playing Halle in Germany. And Andy said, name one player on the men's tour that plays a one-handed backhand underspin approach shot. With our Welby Van Horn training, we do balance training. Malhar knows this, done years of drop hitting balls. And one is the drop hit an underspin backhand, two-handed players. I'll drop hit a one-handed underspin backhand. We stay away from the word slice because people think of chip and chop. But the scoring format can change. But this past week we had Malhar and a visiting player, a college player. They played a set, and how the set started is the server just serves underhand, and then the returner plays a one-handed backhand approach shot, and they come to the net. I think people need to know the reasons why. Is when you play underspin, the ball goes slower. When the ball's in flight, the player's in movement to the net, so you get closer to the net. The trajectory is what keeps the ball low. Trick question, what bounces higher, topspin or underspin? Initially, underspin, but it's a trajectory. And also, most importantly, people don't know this, I shouldn't say maybe most important, it's players that we train very seldom come up with this answer, unfortunately, is you take speed off the approach shot because your opponent gets approximately 50% of their speed from your speed. Attack, counterattack. That's what I have down as number 3. 1, Gloria Connors. 2, underspin backhand approach shot. We're just going to share 20 of these with you today, and we could come back with another 20. Attack, counterattack, all different versions. We use the term variables. Say approach shots. The attacker is the returner. The counterattacker is a server. Why is the counterattacker a server? They're putting the ball in play. So you feed an approach shot. Say, for example, you're feeding, you can do it as a set. Just feed to the deuce court. And then you keep score like you're playing a set. If you want to increase net appearances, use situational training. Match simulated drills. So the player comes in, and the player coming in, they're the attacker. They're going to hit volleys and overheads. The counterattacker is going to hit passing shots and lobs. You can do it off approach volleys, and then you can say, okay, we're going to practice a conventional approach volley on the forehand side. We practice swing volley, forehand side, backhand side. You can do it 4-4. It keeps score to 21 like you do in ping pong, table tennis. You can do tiebreakers with, I remember Fred Stolle, he was coaching Garolitis when he was playing against Borg. You feed the ball with heavy spin. A lot of times players, especially in junior tennis with Western grips, are hitting heavy spin. So it doesn't have to just be a courtesy feed. Shot tolerance. Malhar, how would you define shot tolerance?
Shot tolerance is how many balls you can keep in the court early. I mean, just keeping the ball in from the baseline.
Your adversity quotient. The longer the rally, house full of trophies. Keep the ball in play. So the rally, 2 players hit X amount of ground strokes. And you can combine these situational drills over the service line before starting the point. And you can have kids say, all right, you're going to do this for 30 minutes, and you have to rally 8 balls over the service line and then play the point out and keep score. And you come back 30 minutes later, and the score is 3-2 because they can't hit as partners. That's 4 each, 8 balls over the service line. That's one nice thing about the 10 and under line. It's now 9 feet from the baseline. So you can actually do it off that line. It starts off with practice partners, 2 people on a tennis court just rallying, and then it turns into competition, competitors. Number 5, figure 8. I think of Harold Solomon. I think of the figure 8 drill. I could do it for half an hour on the run, not miss the ball. One player's going down the line, one player's going cross court. So you can do the figure 8, and they have to get so many balls, and then they play it out. Instead of having just rally up the middle, you can add depth to that. So it's not a matter of just rallying. Number 5, counter off the overhead. Why don't you explain that one? Does that come to your mind quickly, Malhar?
Yeah, so you're going to have one player at the baseline, one player at the net, and you're going to feed a high defensive lob. And you can alternate lobs. You can get a forehand lob and a backhand lob. It's going to be with underspin, so when the ball bounces, it bounces a little higher. And then you hit your overhead back to the middle of the court, and then you have to counter that overhead off by hitting low topspin down the middle, and then you can play the point out from there.
So the language I have written with that's well done, Malhar. 4-4, 4 points each. Alternate the lob, meaning forehand and backhand. And a lot of kids, for example, they have an extreme Western grip. They find it very difficult to hit an underspin lob off the forehand side. It's amazing to me how many kids are hitting TV lobs. They're trying to hit topspin lobs from everywhere. But hit a high defensive lob, have the person let it bounce. So just reinforcing what Malhar said. It's so important to have kids hit overheads. Many times kids will play a number of tournaments and they don't hit one overhead. But the overhead has to be hit to the middle. I was telling a young 10-year-old yesterday, when you hit an overhead up at the net, it's a green zone overhead. You can try to put the ball away. If it's in the midcourt, it's a yellow zone overhead. You play it as an approach shot. If you get way behind the baseline, and sometimes even the pros have to do this, it's a red zone overhead, and you play it as a ground stroke, rebuilding the point. We tell kids all the time, the lob's going to be fed to you, come up and touch the net. Touch the middle of the net. Don't slap your racket to the top of the net. Top of the net's made of plastic. But then you have to counter by trying to hit a top spin drive up the middle. So we just get a visual on this. One player's hitting an overhead off the bounce right up the middle. You don't really want to lob twice in a row. But the lob was high and effective. So again, you're teaching match play tactics. You get your opponent off the net. They're way back. Now they hit an overhead because they're further back. You have more time to react to the shot. And then you get the ball down at their feet. You force them to hit up, and then you look to go in. You want to have a transition. You got a heads-up player. If they can take the offense away from a player, they can get them off the net, and they in turn can go to the net. Actually, a good point to make with this is think of tennis as capture the net. And when we tell kids, hey, if you could get a practice partner, hit 100 overheads a day, 10 out of the basket, but to put it into a competitive situation, because we know that players will miss their overhead. It's almost a sure thing. They can hit their overhead when the teaching pro is feeding balls out of the basket, but the kid's going to miss their overhead in match play because they don't come to the net. They don't come to the net. Malhar's done a lot of these drills, if not all of them. Go 7-11 on the next one.
So the drill 7-11, you have to serve and volley on both your serves, and the goal is for the server to get to 11 before the returner gets to 7. And if you have younger players, you can reverse the score and you can have the server get to 7 and the returner get to 11.
Okay, with younger kids, you flip it. Serve and volley. The younger kid has to serve and volley. If they can win 11, they win the drill. I would say years ago, that term or that drill was common knowledge. Hey, let's do 7-11. Kids could just meet and say, hey, want to do 7-11? And they go, yeah. You can add variables all the time. Make it be where it's compatible. Serve to the body, return to the body, volley to the body, or volley straight ahead, then play it out. Do 7-11, but you don't play it out until after the 4th shot. So there's a serve, return, first volley. Patterns. Attack off the return. It's just mandatory. They have to come in. So Malhar is playing. He gets one serve. His opponent is coming in. Opponent's coming in. Somebody at the end of the day, and I think for the most part, sounds doom and gloom that you go to a tournament, you only see one pattern. It's people running around their backhand to hit a forehand. The only pattern you see. Make it mandatory, as I said, coming to the net. Half-court singles. Tennis court's 27 feet wide. Half-court singles, you play on 13.5 feet. So when they say, they've done it time after time after time, and I got this from Weston Fairchild, great guy, former teacher in the classroom. I heard him say this. I thought it was fantastic. He said, the teacher said it to him. No such thing as a dumb question, just a question asked by a dumb kid. So I know some of the feelers out there the moms are going, oh, don't say that. But if you've done the drill over and over again, they say, are we playing with the alleys? No, in this drill, you don't use the alleys. 13.5 feet. Variables. I love this drill with no lobs. Now, Malhar has all sorts of finesse. I tell him finesse is his middle name. Tell him to play all the time. And it's great. We play mini tennis for hours, and we want people to have finesse. You need finesse, meaning that you can hit a variety of shots. But in half-court singles, no, there's basically the way to play that is say, hey, just pound it right at the middle. And it's a really good challenge. I'm gonna prove that my volleys are better than your ground strokes. So with 13.5 feet, there's really no angles. So again, half-court singles is actually very good to have players do this because it really helps them stay sideways on their serve. You serve straight ahead. You serve straight ahead. We play hours and hours of ghost doubles. We can get into situational training for doubles, but right now on singles. With rat-a-tat-tat, does that come to you? You know that by me just saying that, Malhar?
Yeah, you're going to have two players at the baseline. You're going to feed it in, make sure you don't run in before the feed, and then you're just going to volley at each other while moving forward to the net, and then it just turns into more of a reflex volley drill.
Vic Braden's favorite drill. Both players start at the baseline, don't cheat, feed the ball, and you both come in and go right at the person. It's amazing how many players will run around their backhand volley. The ball's coming right at them. You have much more range of motion with the backhand volley. That's where in doubles, if you're playing against a right-hander, you try to hit to the right hip. So rat-a-tat-tat, that's just like boom, boom, boom. The ball's just hit, tap, tap, tap. And initially, people are afraid of the ball. It's not a lacrosse ball. It's not a hockey puck. You're going to get tagged with some tennis balls. But it's, again, Malhar summed it up with reflex volleys. You need to develop instincts going forward. John Macro, forward, always forward. Okay, another situational drill. On the rise, what's that mean for you, Malhar?
On the rise, just stay inside the baseline of the court. You can't back up, and you have to take the ball early on the rise, and basically your contact point will stay about hip level.
Very good. Game-based training. People can say, gee, I'm being negative, being cynical. I think game-based training is based on money. We're always telling people it should be form-based and game-based equals principle-based. So yeah, make it a game. Games are fun. But you initially need to really develop technique before you do game-based drills. But on the rise, you lose the points automatically over if you step outside of the court. You have to be within the court. You have to be inside the baseline. Actually, heard John Newcomb say it one time at a coaching conference. Bounce hit the rhythm playing on the rise. You really have to keep your head still. You really don't want to be open up playing on the rise. Jimmy Connors was asked, what's your legacy, Jimmy? And he said, proving to people that you can play the ball on the rise. And then Agassi showed that he certainly was listening to Connors, because they asked years later, when he retired, he said, what's your legacy? He goes, I took it one step further than Jimmy Connors. Jimmy proved you could take the ball on the rise. I proved you could take the ball on the rise and hit with topspin. This is one that we don't do often, but we should. Is you get 3 serves. You get 3 serves, and because a lot of times players, say a right-hander, they just don't get out to the right. They don't go for their serve, especially even on second serves. Rod Laver, if I can't get 1 of 2 of the serves in, I don't deserve to win the point. So to not have a push second serve. Why don't you comment on number 12, Malhar?
Number 12 is the depth game, and you're just rallying from the baseline with your partner. If you hit the ball short inside the service line, then you can lose a point. But then you can also take it up a level, and you can use the 10 and under line. And you can rally for depth from there as well.
Years ago in America, we developed better players when kids just took a private lesson. Malhar's a piano player. He takes a private lesson once a week. That's it. And then you practice it between and the piano teacher knows whether you've been practicing or not. Everybody benefited when it was just a 1-hour private. But boy, so many changes because of that. We always, to digress, backboards aren't being built. There's no ladders. People aren't calling each other up to play the youth versus veteran match. But I think also, too, is that kids get bored rallying because they don't go out and practice on their own. It's not like kids are going, hey, let's hit a half-hour cross-court forehands, let's hit a half-hour cross-court backhands. And you still, even though you'll hear with Craig O'Shaughnessy doing a great job as far as sharing analytics, but at the first 4 shots, players in their formative years, developmental years, they also need to know how the brain works, and they need to have efficient swings that they've repeated over and over again. Corner feeds, that come to your mind what that is?
Yeah, you have you're gonna have one of the players stand on the intersection of the single sideline and the baseline. You're gonna have a feeder who's just gonna have a ball in their hand, and then they're gonna feed to the corner, and the person that was standing on the intersection is going to run, hit a forehand or a backhand on the run, and then you play the point out from there.
Certainly you can do this with a coach. So one player is on the single sideline, and the coach just feeds the ball where they have to hit a running forehand, and then from there they play it out. But I'm always telling young players, if you're only on the court with a tennis professional, you won't be a good player. If you're not practicing on your own, you're not practicing with a practice partner. If you're always with someone who's being paid, especially in fitness. Let me go with this one. Actually, back to 13, corner feeds, forehand side, backhand side, and then with the way you feed the ball as well. You can feed it with heavy slice, feed it with a looping top. You got to vary the feeds. Dennis Vandermeer, he would have player 1 be on the service line. They'd feed the ball to player 2. Player 2 would hit a drop shot, but player 1, as soon as they were done feeding the ball, they have to run to the baseline and tag up. Younger players, you'd have them run to the 10 under line. And then from there, you play the point out. I like to have players do lots of drills where it's like a sprint with a skill at the end of it. Granted, you need to go to the track. Going to the track, to struggle, pain, builds character. Now, off this Dennis Vandermeer drop shot drill, it teaches people to hold the line. You can watch pro players play on TV, and it's like, well, I don't think they know what it means to hold the line. So the player is retrieving a drop shot. They come up and they go to the cross-court area where they think there's more area. And then the opponent intercepts and they can volley to the open court. So if someone's retrieving the drop shot, you stay away from the word almost. I should say, stay away from the word always and never. Almost always. Almost always. Again, keep it low, but you retrieve a drop shot, you hit it up the line, keeping it low. So then when your opponent plays that shot and they go cross court, you can intercept and you have the open court. Passing shot drills with 2 volleys. Do you know that one, Malhar?
No, it doesn't ring a
Doesn't
bell.
ring a bell. Okay, so you've done it, but that's where with drills, it's very good to have a name. Just have a name. Passing shot drill. So Malhar is at the service line, and his opponent partner is at the baseline. Feeds the ball to Malhar, and Malhar volleys it back to him. And then the second volley, Malhar has to hit the volley between the percentage post, which is 3.5 feet in from each sideline. So that means within 20 feet. And then you play the point out. And really, people need to learn. Steve Denton mentioned that on one of our podcasts, coach at Texas A&M, is try to win on the second passing shot. Now, I know one that's not written down here is arc a ball high and deep. When we teach specialty shots, we teach people how to hit a high arcing forehand, move your opponent way back, and then we call the drop shot the invitation shot. Bring them to the net. If you're in the warm-up, it's really interesting now. If you don't watch a player during the warm-up, you may never see him volley. You want to scout a player. If you don't see the warm-up, you're not going to see him volley. So anyway, get a visual on this. You hit the ball high and deep. You arc the ball. Your opponent moves back. It's a trajectory that makes the ball bounce high. They're playing the ball above their shoulder. And then you move in. And why we call it an invitation shot, you're not trying to hit a winning drop shot, barely hitting over the net. You want to keep the ball below the level of the net. So you hit it over the drop shot, obviously over the net. When they come up, your opponent, you want them to be hitting the ball from below the level of the net. And even then, when they come in, you don't have to try to hit a TV topspin lob. If, say, for example, you've just noticed that your opponent cannot hit a backhand volley. Their racket head is touching their shoelaces. It's hitting the court. That's how much the racket head goes down in the backhand volley. Well, you want to find a way, and you could do this during a green light point when you're ahead by 2 or more points, is you're going to spoil them. You're going to exploit them, bring them up, and then you just keep the passing shot low to their backhand volley, or even just hit it at their backhand volley, and they're going to dump it. Most players finesse volleys because they have a really strong continental grip and the racket face is open too much. So anyway, create ways to practice passing shots. Now, we do this many times just as a fitness drill. The Jimmy Connors' favorite drill. You put one player in the service box, say the deuce court service box, and they have to lead their partners on the baseline. So the volleyer stays in one position. They don't move from the deuce court service box. And they feed the ball. They're hitting. It's a live ball. My mistake. They're not feeding the ball. They'll introduce the drill as a feed. But then it's a live ball, meaning they're hitting back and forth. And then you just go through a certain number. Okay, let's go 8 times. So one player's up at the net volleying. The other player is going to hit ground strokes. So how you volley, you lead the player. You volley down the line first. You volley cross court second. So if it's a righty, say it's 2 righties, and the righty in the service box in the deuce court, when he volleys down the line, his partner, another righty, is hitting a down the line backhand. He volleys cross court. As they go side to side. Now they're hitting a cross-court forehand. So Malhar would start up, and they play to, say, to 11. After the ball goes 8 times, it could be 6 times. They play to 11, then they switch, where Malhar's partner comes up, and they're in the deuce court. Now, Malhar's a lefty, so it's just reverse. So he'd be hitting a down line forehand. So the second time through is Malhar would start the drill in the ad court. So then my first shot is going to be a forehand down the line, and then a backhand cross court. And then after a certain number, you play the point out. Now, we can do drills and then change them. So this is a drill Malhar does all the time. 5 shots, 7 shots. They come to your mind without making it a point? Just play 5 shots, Malhar?
Yeah, so you're going to have a serve, a return. You're going to serve and volley, hit your volley, and you're going to get a lob off the pass, and then you're going to hit an overhead. So that's 5 shots right there. And then 7 shots would be serve, return, approach shot, volley, lob, overhead. I think I got that.
So it's a skill set. Initially, it's not specifically, say, all to the backhand. 5 shots is going to be a serve. The server stays back. Now, the returner just sets, because they're practice partners, the returner sets the server up to come in and play an approach shot. And then from there, if it's a 5-ball drill, it's just the next shot hit is a lob. And then after the overhead, you can just have them stop because you're working on technique. But if you make it match simulated, after the overhead's hit, you say, okay, let's play out the point. Now, that's 5 shots. Serve, return, approach shot, lob, overhead. And that's partner to partner, predictable, consistent. Now, then you find out how good your players are and say, okay, everything to the backhand. Serve to the backhand, return to the backhand, approach to the backhand, lob over the backhand side. And then we talk about specialty shots or emergency shots. How are you going to play that ball over the backhand side? Now, even though ideally you'd like to hit an overhead up at the net, the 75-25 rule, 75% of the net you're going to try to hit that space, you're going to hit as an overhead. But if they hit a lob over your backhand side, if it's out in front, most of the players today are two-handed. We haven't played a swinging, it's like a swinging volley. If it gets over their head, then they have to hit the reverse overhead emergency shot. So that's 5 balls. Now, and just those of you listening to our podcast, granted, it's like, I'd like to see the drill on video. Well, if you go to our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied, there's a segment on situational training. But you're hearing this with the language that we use. So then you make it 7 shots. So it's serve, return. Now, instead of hitting a lob after they hit the approach shot, you just make them hit a volley. So say, for example, you want to have, people to hit a backhand volley. So you design the drill, and they have to have the skill set to do that. If you can hit it to a person, you can hit it away from a person. We always say the better player, when they're rallying with a player of lesser skill, lesser experience, is that it's the advanced player's fault if the shot is missed. Put the ball on a dime. You have to have gears. I think that's a major problem. People just they want to hit with better players. Say, for example, go back to a drill we mentioned. Malhar did earlier in the week. His partner puts a ball in play. Malhar had to come to the net with a one-handed underspin backhand. Well, you can say, all right, hit that ball to the player's forehand, hit that ball to the player's backhand, and they have to hit the ball to your backhand volley, and then you play it out. If your partner, let me slow down here. If your student doesn't have a backhand volley, find ways to do it in situational training. Remember, there's 3 types of training. There's technical, you feed balls to them, you toss balls to them, and they look like $1 million. And especially if they are trying to make changes in their game, you don't want to say, okay, now go play. That's a crisis. What happens, all these academies around America, especially here in Florida, academies are like 7-Elevens. There's one on every street corner. And That's from last week. People drill in the morning, they play matches in the afternoon. It's instruction, destruction. If people are trying to make a change, you have to create situations. Situational training. I want this player to be moving in and hitting a backhand volley while they're playing points, because you're going to live and die with confidence. I like Bobby Knight's comment, the former basketball coach, retired now. I'm not interested in my players' confidence. I'm interested in my confidence if I'm going to put them into play. So let's go on to the next one. Malhar, volley, lob volley. Malhar is the master of the lob volley. I always think of Robbie Seguzo, easygoing guy. I've seen him go ballistic when the kid hits a lob volley, because he knows, he's number one doubles player in the world for 5 years. Is most lob volleys at a really high level, they're going to come right back down your throat. Right back down your throat. But you can have people go volley. Now with that, you could do a figure 8 off volleys. So Malhar's going down the line, his partner's going cross court. Maybe it's 10 volleys, 12 volleys. Center your feet, quicker your feet, get organized. But then one player is going to be the retriever. So when you hit the lob volley, you don't hit an overhead. You hit the lob volley, and even if it's out, you can intentionally tell them, hit the lob volley where it's out, long. You intentionally want one player on your squad to hit the ball long, and then the other player has to just turn and sprint, and try to get back and put a lob back in play. So two players at the net, get a visual on that. They're volleying, volley. One player has to hit the lob volley. It's where they have to hesitate, then they turn and go, and then you play it out. I know a lot of college tennis coaches. It's unfortunate. In the history of time, there's been wars, always been wars on planet Earth. But the book, The Art of War, when your opponent retreats, so you hit a really good lob, when your opponent retreats, you attack. That's not a once in a while thing. That's every time. So volley, lob volley, and then it creates a sprint. It creates one player having to see if they can retrieve and get back in the point. Why don't you talk about this one, Malhar? Play a set in the alley.
Yeah, so the alley's 4.5 feet wide. So basically you have a very long and narrow sidewalk that you hit on. And if you hit the ball outside the alley, you lose the point early. And you just play sets from there. Same scoring format.
We have in the technical phase, we can have people drop hit balls and make it a competition. You can do winners move up, losers move down, with people drop hitting balls in the alley. We have people drop hit a forehand, a backhand, underspin backhand. We have people do double hits in the alley, and again make it competitive. Now, where I first heard of this was back in the 70s, where supposedly at Forest Hills, people say it was the worst grass court play, the worst grass courts in the world. But the pros are so good that they can actually just hit the ball in the alley. You really have to move your feet. You can't hit two of the same shots. It has to be alternating, forehand, backhand. It's very similar to having people play half-court singles. It's amazing how many people miss the ball wide. I will go back and go through all these quickly. With half-court singles, we do sometimes where if you miss wide from the red zone and neutral area, you automatically lose the game. So we go back through concepts. If you go to Tennis Intelligence Applied, and we went over the 2-bounce rule. Why do you explain that, Malhar, the 2-bounce rule?
The 2-bounce rule is when you extend the single sideline back to the baseline, your second bounce, you want to have that second bounce land inside that extended line. So you're not going to miss wide. You hit through the center and through the middle of the court, and you keep your opponent in the pocket early.
You can have people, especially if you have the teaching aids, it's a little bit safer if it's just one of the plastic discs. I really like to use cones. So you actually have people rally with the cones. So the cones percentage post, 3.5 feet from inside each sideline. Here's another one. Did this week. Number 20. We really stopped numbering these, my mistake. These players were 2 different levels, and it ended up being a tiebreaker. Yeah, one player for a state where there's not a lot of competitive tennis, runner-up in a high school state final, another kid who's playing college tennis. The high school player served from the service line. And you can do it where they can serve anywhere, and that's what we did with those 2. You can do it where you say serve right at the body. Monica Selish's father served 500 balls a day. That's 2 of those, the big baskets have 250, 300 balls. And supposedly at one point, maybe that's still a stand today, is that no one took the ball earlier than Monica Selish. So you serve from the service lines. So you're really, it's pretty easy to hit aces, actually. That's why we tell people at a certain level, just serve right at the body. And then the server has to serve from the fence. They have to serve from the fence. And it's just pretty interesting to watch. And it becomes competitive. And we all know if you're coaching, many times you have to be creative because you have different levels of play within a squad, within a group. So to put some of this together with Gloria Connors, 15-30, one serve. Well, you could have it be where the player has to come to the net. It could be 15-30, one serve, where the returner has to hit to the backhand volley. And then you say, well, what if they don't get the return to the backhand volley? What if they miss the return? So again, you can take the score out of it and say, no, just do it again. Do it again. Do it again from the movie Miracle. Again. Basketball, football, volleyball, other sports, they'll just repeat the movement, repeat the play, the pattern, the situation. So you go to number 2, the one-handed backhand approach shot. The hitting that down the line, you're much better off to take the underspin backhand approach shot cross court. Now, granted, there's many variables. Are you playing a lefty, playing a righty? They got a stronger forehand, stronger backhand. But Vic Braden used to say, if you're hitting an approach shot straight, it's very easy for your opponent to hit crooked. But if you're hitting your approach shot crooked, it's more difficult to pass straight. You ask a group of tennis coaches, I think it's because there's many reasons, but one, I think why do tennis coaches say down the line, down the line, down the line? That's what they heard when they were a kid, and we're creatures of habit. I was told to do that, so I'll tell everybody else to do that. Also, too, in a drill situation, many times you get 2 lines going, but you have to wait for a shorter ball. You have to go back and study how Braden defines short ball range, the number of steps it takes you to get in volleying position. So when you approach cross court, you have to wait for a ball that's closer to the center, closer to the net. You mark off the number of steps. So all these podcasts we have, hopefully it's helping people make some connections. Attack, counterattack. Your players they hang on to the racket with a Western grip, and you're going to tell them, okay, you got to do this drill, and you got to play a conventional forehand volley. So instead of just beating yourself up as a coach and telling them over and over and over again, well, you're the way you hang on to your forehand, you don't have options. The way you hang on to the racket in the ready position, you don't have options. Your racket's not centered. The ready position sets you up for a forehand volley. So say, hey, I'm sick of talking to the wall. I'm telling them a million times over and over again, we're going to do a drill that's not going to make them a happy camper. Feed the ball, their forehand, play a conventional forehand volley. I've had some fun with this. Kid has really extreme grips, and say, okay, go play a set or go play a couple tiebreakers. We'll watch it. We'll film it. And the only thing you can hit topspin on is your serve. And they look at you. They're just stuck. because they don't have the skill set because of the grip, the problems they have with their grips. They just become locked in with the rallying, with, just to tell people, okay, go out. The Bryan brothers, they run on the court and they hit 500 balls as fast as they can. Mini tennis, service line to service line, and they just have 3 or 4 drills they do within that. But just go out and rally 100 balls, moving your feet, breathing, keeping your eyes at the hit. Maybe it's on the forehand side, 2-1-2. You have to have good defense. You have to keep the ball in play. I think this French Open, they just on the men's side with Casper Ruud and Rafa Nadal, I'm just discouraged with young players. They're in front of a TV watching a world-class event, and they take their phone out. They're not engaged. But they're just arcing the ball back and forth, a depth game. Within that, you can mix it up. You say, okay, rally. We want you to rally cross court, and we want you to hit one-handed backhand, underspin, and then your two-handed topspin backhand. So Einstein, imagination is greater than knowledge. The figure 8 drill, one player going down line, one player going cross court, that's gone away because kids don't practice on their own. They take a private lesson, you call somebody up and say, let's go hit. Let's go do the figure 8 drill. Just think that doesn't happen. Countering off the overhead. If you've got a kid who doesn't play overheads, that's the first drill you want to do. You want to create the reps and create it. It's in between. It's not tournament play. It's not a match play situation. But okay, we're playing points. And you can hit overhead and overhead. It can't just be hitting overheads out of the basket. Now, when the overhead comes in with a lot of speed, can the person have that short, compact swing where they can take the overhead, play it on the rise? So then you put it together and go, well, we got the John Newcomb drill where they got to rally. They have to stay within the court. They can't back up. And we've done the drills where, you feed a ball and they have to take it out of the air. So they're playing with a swing volley. So you do all these different things, and it really comes down to basics. If you have basic fundamentals, your swing patterns are efficient, short, compact, you can do these drills. Serve and volley. The coach can wear a whistle. If you say serve and volley to the backhand, you have to serve to the backhand, and you don't play the point unless the serve goes to the backhand. Now, what the players do on the tour, and it's just so they don't have to go chase the balls, when they're warming up, they'll tell their opponent on the other side, wide. They're serving wide. They're serving T. So then, there's just a handful of balls on the court, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to hit a ball wide, and then the person has to go and get it. Hey, I'm serving it wide. The person goes over, catches the ball, serves it back. But designate targets. Vic Braden, tennis is hitting targets. Attack off the return. Ask players all the time, well, this weekend you played a tournament. Did you serve and volley one time? And generally the answer is no. Did you take a second serve one time and come in? Yeah, generally the answer is no. I mean, I don't mean to be the bad guy, but that's bad news. With OU won 6-1, 6-0, you must have had quite a few green light points. You're telling me that you didn't serve and volley once, you didn't take a second serve return. That's a negative of the UTR. As kids don't experiment. They're so worried about their UTR going up and down. Malhar, he's got, I think, a good handle on the hidden numbers. The hidden numbers, how a kid's going to do with their GPA and their SATs. But then now is the third number is the UTR. So say if Malhar is at 10.2, he needs to get to be at 12. He's got 3 years to do that. That's 1.8. He's got to get 0.6 better per year. How is he going to do that? Is he just going to do that by, I got to go play tournaments. I got to practice with better players. No, everything has to get better. Nutrition, stamina, flexibility, the mental part of the game. Now, I can go back and I just think of half-court singles. I think of a gal I worked with by the name of Julie Scott. If you go to our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied, you'll see her whiffing overheads, palm up, She did quite well. I mean, she went to Stanford. She won a individual title. She won a team title. She was the last player out to win a team title. But to give her confidence at the net, you're playing half-court singles. And then you have to come in. You can combine these. You're playing half-court singles as attack, counterattack. You're playing half-court singles, but there's no lobs. And there's no hitting the drop volley, no finesse. And again, that's just like the serve and volley drill where, okay, serve to the backhand, return to the backhand, play it out. And, when you want people to play the half-court singles, and it could be rally for depth, rally 8, and then play it out. And then you go right at the person. You put it all together. Second point passing shot, the second ball you're going to pass on. That's like in ice hockey. I think of ice hockey often. Phil Esposito. There used to be a bumper sticker. I hope people don't think it's sacrilegious. Jesus saves and Espo scores on the rebound. Generally, the goalie makes a great first save, but then as the puck cleared by the goalie, cleared by the defenseman, many times they pass on the second shot. Malhar, what's your favorite situational drill?
I'd say rat-a-tat-tat.
Rat-a-tat-tat. What's the situational drill you think would help you the most?
The on their eyes, John Newcomb drill.
Okay, very good. Because Malhar had a Western grip when he was younger. He's trying to change that, or he's changed that. But at times, the ball still gets up high. I sent a short film to his dad. He travels and spends a couple weeks a month with us. And I sent a short film to his dad where his contact point was up at earlobe height. And I said, sorry to send this to you, but if you watch it more than 3 times, you have to go buy some blood pressure medicine. That's a good call. I also think anything with shot tolerance. Malhar has played very good tennis with his opposite hand. What did Jan Tiriac tell John McEnroe? He said, you should go to France, play on red clay, and McEnroe left. He said, and play right-handed. Because you're a shot maker. You should try to practice in a situation where you're not going to be a shot maker. I don't like the term pusher. I don't like the term grinder. I mean, if you want to go in that direction, okay, we'll say Bjorn Borg was a pusher. Rafael Nadal was a pusher. You could say they're a defensive specialist. But then if you take a second look, it baffles me when people say Borg never came to the net. Won Wimbledon 5 times on bad grass. Go back and look at video. With 3 serves, don't do that enough. With group dynamics, that slows things down. That would be a drill you only want to have 2 people on the court. The rat-a-tat-tat, the serve and volley, the attack off the second serve. It's very easy if you create situational play to put 4 people on a court. And there's no waiting around. Because the situation, it's not going to be a matter of a long rally. The corner feeds, people should know when they scramble around on the tennis court, people, wow, that was a great point. Generally, it started with someone making a poor tactical choice. But it's like golfers. Golfers, it's interesting. When a golfer goes to a driving range, and at the pro level, I didn't know this for the longest time. My parents bought a house near Pinehurst, North Carolina. It just worked out that I happened to be there several years in a row when there was a pro golf tournament. And I was amazed that the golfers got there and went straight to the driving range. But then also after they're done playing, they go straight to the driving range. And, I think of my father, he used to say he won the Geritol Open. And, he'd win the club championship, 55 and over or what have you, golf. And other siblings played golf and won this and won that. And it's like, you guys, no wonder you're not that good. You just don't hit enough golf balls. But, putting the golf ball behind the tree, you got to practice the emergency shots. Go back and listen to a podcast on Peter Burwash. Tennis is a game of hitting emergency shots. It's also a game of hitting basic shots. I'd like to tell people basic shots will win the match. The great shots will help you make the highlight reel. you think about how well Jimmy Connors moved, and he said on one of his educational tapes, "This is my favorite drill." And many times when a touring pro, they're working with an old coach, the old coach stands in one place, and they still can hit. Like people forgot that Tony Roach worked with Federer. So Tony Roach stands in one corner and he just doesn't miss. Andy Roddick hired Jimmy Connors at one point, and Roddick said he just stood in one place, baseline, and hit the ball back on a dime, put the ball right back deep by the baseline like a machine. So, Jimmy moving side to side with a player up at the net. I like to just do that drill for movement. It's really mind, mechanics, and movement. You have to deal with someone's mind in the beginning to teach them mechanics. And then run, baby, run. You got to love to run. One of the things about volley, lob volley is people don't volley. People warm up at the baseline. It's really interesting to watch kids warm up for the service line. Years ago in America, no one did that. Everybody started warming up at the baseline. That's one thing where the Canadians influenced the Americans years and years ago. The Canadians would warm up from the service line. But Americans would just start right at the baseline. It's interesting when you play Taylor Fritz. I know he's played a lot of this on the court in his backyard. I think his mother was top 10 player in the world. Is 21 depth. Jimmy Johnson was one of our former students, has an academy, and many of his students have had the privilege of going in and practicing with Pete Sampras. And in California, how they play 21 depth, for the most part, you can't lose off the feed, you can't lose off the first shot. But two players are on the baseline, and you just put the ball in play. And you play more points because you don't have to go through the ritual of the serve and such. But Sampras, when he plays 21, you feed the ball in and you just go for it. None of that. Just put the ball in play. Put the ball in play. Again, this is just a handful. If you want to have kids find out in a hurry how good they are, when we have people come and they go through, we mentioned this with last week's podcast on assessments, put people through the tiebreaker test. Better just think of it this way. The service box is 21 by 13 and a half. It's the size of a small living room. And you say, okay, we're going to feed you 30 miles an hour, courtesy feed. It's coming to your forehand volley, predictable. And they miss. And then we say, how many shots did you make out of 25 hitting these four quadrants? It's not to discourage anyone, but you really have to know your level. If you don't know where point A is, you won't get to point B. It's just like reading levels. If a kid's in the 12th grade and they got a 4th grade reading level, you can't really sugarcoat that. Tennis is the same. That comes back, we've said it 1,000 times in these podcasts, when crummy plays crummier, crummy wins, but crummy doesn't know they're crummy. It's very, very scary for people to compare themselves to the person on the other side of the net. One thing that we could do on another podcast is go through creative scoring. Malhar, why don't you give us an idea on creative scoring? We'll sign off here.
+3 -1, +2 -2, +1 -3. So basically, when you're at the baseline and you win the point from the baseline, you get a +1. If you miss a shot from the red zone, from the baseline, you get -3. You can go in the negatives when you count these scores. If you're in the yellow zone, you get +2 if you win the point, -2 if you lose the point from the yellow zone. And if you're in the green zone and you win the point, you get +3. And if you lose a point from the green zone, you get -1. And you just try to end up in the positives.
Okay, with that, a very good answer. Malhar's the coach. I'm one of so-called coaches, but to drop that term, we're just a compass. We give you the directions. Can you follow the directions? You could go back to listen to our podcast on with Richard Hernandez, one of our longtime associates. He loves that drill. When you do it, you just say, okay, play 10 points. You serve 5, you serve 5. I really don't like that because I'd like it to be even, so you're serving the same amount of points to the deuce court and the ad court. So it could be 8. You serve 8, you serve 8. You only keep your own math. Has nothing. There's no score. Just what was your number? Come in, tell me your score. Come in, tell me your score. And if they're time after time, red zone to red zone, hitting balls in the net, hitting balls wide, that number goes way, way up. To find out more about the plus minus and how Malhar just talked about the differential, go to the podcast we had on Bill Jacobson, really the godfather of charting, electronical charting. Obviously, people have been charting for years and years. I like to have people play where you have to win 3 points to win a game. 3 consecutive points to win a game. If you win 6 points in a row, you're up 2-love. That's another drill that works with 2 players that are at different levels. But with every situational drill, you can change the variables. You can change the scoring format. The winner moves up, the loser moves down. Too many times, players do that and they want to move up. They want to move up, and then with that, they play the same way. So at the end of the day, say, tell me what patterns you played. And in a set of tennis, about 50 points played, and the 5 patterns that are usually played are they miss a serve. If I get this right, they miss a forehand, return, backhand, return. You can miss a forehand, return, backhand, return, and that's it. Now, then you can say, well, yeah, the other one is they go for the forehand. That's still a forehand error, but they're really running around it. So anyway, that's a few thoughts on situational training. Malhar, why don't you say one more thing to our audience? What would you say about situational training?
Just piece together the situational training and work on your game during that. You don't have to think of it as a life or death situation.
To ID your game. You go with your strengths. In match play, practice, you spend more time. You work on your strengths, but you have to really work on your weaknesses. I like how you said, piece it together. Piece it together. How old are you, Malhar?
16.
16. So you have 74 years to work on the 90 and over division. But thanks for listening. One thing, GreatBaseTennis.com. We have a website, and we're continuing to give out free information, free tennis education. And the reason for that is we think people could benefit from the people that have trained us to teach tennis. On Facebook, we have, maybe it's 15 years, but we have way over 10 years of daily content. We have Instagram. We have 5 courses online. One is 25 hours long. And then these podcasts. Anyway, Malhar, what's your UTR as a piano player?
Say I'm an 8.5.
You're an 8.5. We have somebody visiting, someone that you spent a lot of years growing up with. You know him. I've trained you and him. I've spent a lot more time with you, obviously, but what's his UTR as a piano player?
I'll give him a 10.5.
You give him a 10.5. Now, why is his UTR in piano higher than your UTR in piano?
He practices more.
He practices more. 3 secrets of tennis: practice, practice, practice. But hopefully you got some ideas from this podcast on situational training, and it should make your practices more enjoyable. I mean, don't you think it's fun to go out and say, go play a set, just serve underhand, play a backhand approach, play it out?
Yeah, for sure.
And then so you're focusing on that one shot. Every point, you're really then letting the kids know how important that one shot is, and then they go out and they get to play. Think about kids who've played basketball. Can we scrimmage coach? Can we scrimmage coach? Kids want to be able to play, but Dennis Vandermeer, we got to figure out these buggers, and they're not going to do what they're not best at. They're going to go what they're best with. So that's where creative thinking to have your players become better. You don't want to be a one-dimensional player. I really feel sad for college coaches. They're bringing kids in. They don't even know where to stand when they're playing doubles. And it's getting that way in singles, that they can just bang balls from the baseline. And, then the college coach has the dilemma, well, now the kid's 18 years old. What's their attitude like? And sadly, many of the players, they leave pretty much the same type of game style. They don't add to their game. They go into college as just say a baseliner, a counterattacker. Their only offense is to run around the backhand. 4 years later, they're playing the same way. But coming back to Braden with philosophy, you want to be able to hit every shot on every court, every surface, singles and doubles, and have some fun doing it. Anyway, podcast number 98 in the books. Malhar, thanks for helping out. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for listening.